Hello and welcome to the February Outturn Podcast.
Are you starting with Pete?
I'm starting with Pete. We're just going to go straight into it.
Yeah, right. Okay, sure. You going out with Pinky or Ian?
I like to drink my whiskey with my elegant pinky poking up the way. This is from distillery number 30. It's called Sunshine on the Soul. I should look at the camera and say that. Sunshine on the Soul. It's like this distillery just decided to take its clothes off and go streaking.
Oh, no.
Very steady. I'm Richard Gosselin, joined by, as usual, my sidekick.
Calum Lawson in the house, thank you.
I'm delighted to have Matt Bailey join us for the first time.
First time.
All the way from Australia.
I've been waiting for this moment.
You came from Australia just for this
No,
podcast.
No, I didn't. But I'm here now, and thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Always
We're going
appreciate
to
it.
find out more about Matt's whiskey journey and what he's doing here in Scotland. First of all, new channel, new year. Well, almost new year. We're now at Whisky Talk on YouTube. So look out for us there, like and subscribe. There's going to be much more content coming your way in 2025, and this is the place to find it. So lots going on. Matt, welcome to Scotland.
Thanks, Richard.
You've been a long-term employee of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, but recently relocated to Scotland in a new role.
That's right.
Managing director, no less.
Yes.
For the UK and Europe.
Yep.
So what's going on? Tell us all about it.
Long-time staff member, but also long-time member. I was a member of the society before I joined as a staff member. I'm rewinding to like 2015 here. I mean, I joined the team in 2015, so this will be my 10th year at SMWS. I sort of headed up as an ambassador in Australia, and now all the way from then to here, which is now as managing director for EU UK. Do we say UK still? We just say the EU.
Well, EU,
Including UK, isn't it?
it doesn't.
Okay, it does include the
Even though we're not part of the EU, we're talking about EU, including the UK.
included in that. Yeah, so which is fantastic. So
continent.
so I look after the venues, e-commerce, marketing, and general sort of deployment of and success of the society here in Europe, which is really exciting.
Great.
Yeah, a lot going on.
And,
Big year ahead.
How's the first winter been in Scotland so far?
It was actually fine up until about was like, I don't know, like mid December. It was sort of mild each day, and then somewhere just coming into Christmas, it went from being 10, 9, 8 degrees each day to suddenly zeros and ones, and that's when I was like, okay, now this is a proper winter now.
Yeah.
And it's been fine though. It's been really nice because I mean that winter before was sort of, it's a bit like a Melbourne winter, which is where I'm coming from Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about being in Scotland and drinking whiskey here as
Yep.
opposed to the other side of the world where, obviously there's a whiskey scene, but it's not, where whiskey comes from. It's not, what you're getting in Scotland, man.
I mean, the Irish would continue on that one, but it's true. I mean, it's something a bit different. I mean, it's actually when I finally came over, and I was at 10 George Street, the office, and I went out into the balcony, out looking over the castle, and had a dram out in that balcony, and I was at that moment of like, okay, I'm drinking whiskey in Scotland now, that sort of thing. And I've been to Scotland many times, but this was sort of a bit different. This is sort of like, now I've moved here, and this whole sort of, it was a very different feeling, and it's pretty special.
I don't think we appreciate that. When you come from Scotland, you just, you don't have that sense of what it's like if you're not from here to come to
Absolutely.
the home of Scotland.
The home where it's made, and
You just take it for granted, and you know that it's all there, but you don't really know how big it is, and it's much more special when it comes from like you live somewhere else, and it comes from the mystical Isles of Scotland.
Even like distilleries that actually aren't that far away suddenly. It's kind of like this weird sort of surreal moment, like someone says, "Oh yeah, so just it's only half an hour's drive to Glenkinchie or something," and you say, "That's right." That would be a 23-hour flight and a half-hour drive in my previous.
But how did you originally get into whiskey when you're a young man growing up in Australia? What was your what was your preconceptions of whiskey in Scotland, and what got you into it?
I think I may have been a teenager. If I say the exact age, it's probably a bit inappropriate. But I remember my grandfather, my adopted grandfather. He was living in the flat next door to the house I grew up in, and he had this. I saw his light was on at like 12:30 a.m. one night. It was New Year's Eve, and I knocked on his window and said Happy New Year, and he said, "Oh, come in for a dram," and he invited me for a dram, and he just passed me a bottle of Johnny Walker Black Label, and I poured what I thought was a normal sized whiskey, which I didn't know back then, was I filled the tumbler to the top, basically.
Right.
I went, okay, sure. And I tried to drink it a bit like water, and I had the worst heartburn that night I've ever had in my life, because I was a bit young, but I kind of liked the flavour of it. And I remember thinking, that's really nice. And I sort of forgot about whiskey for a few years, and then got back into it when I was maybe sort of 22, 23 or something. And my entry into it was actually a little bit unusual, because I remember walking into a bottle shop that I must have been in Melbourne at the time, or maybe Sydney, I can't remember. And I remember seeing all these bottles on the shelf, and I didn't know what any of them meant. I didn't know what any of the distilleries meant. I didn't know which ones to go with. And I remember I bought a Klein Leash. And, you'd think that maybe your first entry might be a Johnny Walker again, or might be a Chivas Regal or something. But it was a bottle of Klein Leash, and I think it was an independent bottling of Klein Leash. I think it was like a 10-year-old independently bottled Klein Leash, and I remember
18-year-olds.
No, 10, just 10-year-old independently bottled Klein Leash, and I bought it, and it was maybe 46% or 43% ABV or something, and I loved it, and that was sort of that trajectory, and I just started collecting it and going to tastings and going to events, and I actually never intentionally collected whiskey. I want to make that really clear. You just accidentally end up with a stash of it over time, and you go, well, I'll get to that bottle, or I'll get to that one, sort of thing. Or special occasion bottles. I've since discovered that there really isn't such a thing as a special occasion bottle, in my opinion. It should just be, hey, it's Tuesday night and I'm living on Earth.
Do you know what I think's funny is that how many people we speak to of our generation, people we've had on the podcast, when we ask them how they got into whiskey or their first time they tried whiskey, they've pretty much all said through their grandfather.
Yeah.
Because I had the same experience as well. And it's almost like there was more of a generational thing, but it was much more a thing blended back in the 80s or whatever. But I don't think it was as popular with my parents' generation as it is now, and it's coming back into fashion and being much more popular. Yeah. But we've all got our grandfathers to blame, I think, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, he drank gin and he drank whiskey, and I think he was more of a sort of a gin and tonic during the day and whiskey at night.
Right, okay.
He was a night owl as well, and he'd be constantly up until sort of 2, 3, 4 in the morning, working away. And that was, I think he was the one who introduced me to whiskey, really. And my dad and still is, it was an avid whiskey drinker as well. And but it was probably my dad never really bought anything as fancy as Black Label.
Right. Okay.
So it was he was more of a Teachers or Bells or kind of what was it, White Heather or VAT 69, those kind of things.
But how does the scene differ in Australia compared with here in Scotland?
It's changed so much. There's one of my colleagues, Andrew Durbidge, you guys know, he used to say this line, I think he still says this line of, whatever you think is happening in whiskey right now in Australia is different within 12 months. It's a totally different scene. It's constantly growing and evolving. And it was, I remember when I first got into whiskey properly, I was going to tastings at the Oak Barrel in Sydney, which is an independent bottle shop, sort of in this bottle shop, a fantastic location right in the city, but in this sort of series of tunnels and little alcoves everywhere in this huge store snaked around. And one of the corridors was turned into a tasting lounge. And I used to go to these tastings there, and tickets were, you'd get a ticket for $30, which is, £15 for those in the UK. And, you'd taste 5 or 6 whiskeys and have a chat with the presenter or the host or the ambassador. And I mean, they still do those tastings today. And we do some with them with the SNWS there as well now. And they, the whole scene changes so quickly, both in the interest of Australian whiskey and the growth of the locally produced whiskey, which was, again, when I first got into whiskey, I think, in Tasmania there alone, that little Apple Isle at the bottom of the country, there was probably 6 distilleries making whiskey, and now there's 150.
What?
Yeah.
And it's
100.
In Tassie.
In Tasmania alone?
Yeah, in Tasmania alone.
Jeez.
I have to check that number, but it's over 100.
Oh.
So it's a lot. And so it's like, it's suddenly it's like, you've got all these, the whole scene's changed, and you've got maybe, I think there's about 700 distilleries across Australia now.
Wow.
Half of which are at least making whiskey or intend to make whiskey or have made whiskey.
So that's way more than we've got in Scotland.
Yeah. It is way more, but it's worth noting that a lot of them are
Very
much
small.
smaller operations.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are mum and pop operations that maybe do
And they're like
10 or
mashing by
20,000
hand and
litres
all
a
this
year.
sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, maybe some might be sourced, but it's and so there's a lot of but there's some really big distilleries in. I mean, even I've watched Archie Rose be born and grown, and we've got a code for them in the system, 147.
Yeah.
Like I've watched a distillery like that in Sydney go from first opening day, which I was there with them when they opened that distillery, and then to today. Today they're now bigger than Lefroy in output, and that's a big distillery.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Sorry.
How do you rate Tasmanian whiskey, and how would you compare it to Scotch whiskey?
I mean, they're very different. They actually are very different. I mean, they're both whiskies. They're both made from barley. They're both barley water, yeast, time, cask people, all that stuff. But they are all. I think Tasmanian whiskey, or even Australian whiskey as a whole, has started to properly over the last 5 to 10 years pick up its own identity. It's started to pick up its own sort of flavour profiles, and you often get a bit more of that sort of. I personally get a bit more of that sort of like thick sort of like lanolin notes and molasses and a little bit eucalypt kind of notes in some Australian whiskies now, but not all of them. It's just there is a fair bit of Australian whiskey that sort of mirrors and learns off Scotch. I think.
Of course, that happens a lot, doesn't it?
It happens across the world. I mean, look at whiskey being made in Japan or Taiwan or anywhere. They've learnt from the Scots how to make it real. And so I think, but I think it's my opinion of it is that there's some really good, some really bad.
Okay. Well, I didn't
I'm not
realize.
going to name names, but I mean, there's some fantastic stuff being made now. Yeah.
I didn't realize there was nearly as many as those that, but
Yeah.
from my sort of outside view, I think Tasmanian whiskey and Australian whiskey's got a really good sort of,
not a lot of export.
It's got a good reputation, I think.
It does, yeah, it does. Yeah. It's got a good local reputation. It's just hampered by high labour costs and extreme excise. For anyone who watches in Sweden, I sympathise with you, but it's Sweden and Australia. I think are the two most taxed, or maybe it's Norway. I don't know, but like it's some of the highest tax on spirits in the world.
Right, well,
which makes it tricky to start a distillery and get traction against, especially against Irish, Scotch, or American whiskey.
Yeah. And how many bottles have we done from Australian distilleries? Is it just the one?
We've done 3 casks. So we've
but from one distillery.
Oh, from one. Yeah, from that one. Yeah, from 147 we've done one cask.
Any more Australian whiskey coming to the society that you know of?
Anyway, yeah. I mean,
you can be vague about it if you want. Maybe.
Maybe.
What a tease, eh?
Maybe.
Give the people the hint of something.
I can't say.
I can ask them anything you want right now.
We can edit this part out. No. I think there's stuff that we've there's stuff that the spirits. We don't call them spirit. Whiskey team are still working.
Watch this space, maybe.
Watch this space is the best way to put it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
because the first bottle went down very well, didn't it?
It did. Sold out in seconds.
Yeah.
The whole cask was gone.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to drink whiskey.
That's also a .1 novelty, isn't it? Really.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
We're also
Are you starting with Pete?
I'm starting with Pete. We're just going to go straight into it.
Yeah, right. Okay, sure.
No messing around. Kicking off with this. I mean, it's the tasting panel comes up with a lot of references that we might not automatically get them, but they're kind of pushing.
They're meant to be out there, wicked and wild.
Yeah.
That's one of the fun parts. I mean, the panel for me is one of the most mysterious, yet one of the most important aspects of what the society is.
Yeah.
And yes, as Calum said, some of the notes are pretty wacky and wild, and they bring colour. And thank you. Wow. Into what the society is, and that was something if we're thinking of Pip's original vision of removing stuffy tartan and bringing back colour and fun and madness into whiskey, and that's what I still love about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what caught my eye about the tasting notes in this one is the tasting panel itself describes this as silly and amazing whiskey, right? Now,
what are we drinking? What are we drinking?
Well, I can tell you, this is from distillery number 10.274. It's called Life's a Riot. 10 years old. Initial cask is bourbon, then into a second fill sherry butt, coming in at 60.5%. And this is not the heavily peated, but the peated.
Peated, yeah.
Yeah, so medium peat, but I had a wee nose of that, and it feels pretty.
But the fact that you're calling whiskey silly and marketing it as silly and amazing, I quite like that.
On the nose,
we can't take this too seriously. You can't take whiskey too seriously. You have people who get have you ever been to one of those tastings from an ambassador and they go, oh, so we're going to talk about what the temperature at Mortlach Distillery was on that Wednesday in April in 1974.
And then explain a 2.81 price.
2.81111 times distilled spirit. Okay, stop. It's I love nerdy stats and facts as much as anyone, but then they're not part of it doesn't tell me anything about what's in the glass.
Yeah.
Or if you go to a tasting and it's a single malt brand and they're just telling you the the standard tasting notes.
yeah.
It's like 3 things. This one is smooth, sweet, and
Yeah.
Fruity.
Yeah.
It's fruity.
What-
And I always say, what kind of fruit? And what kind of, like it doesn't give you any... I say this for beginners as well. When I've hosted tastings in the past, the beginner, I always say to them as well, it's like, someone says, oh, it smells fruity. Okay, what kind of fruit? Oh, like stone fruit. Okay, what kind of stone fruit? Like mango or papaya or whatever, or peach or apricot. Like, and then they go, oh, it's like apricot. Is it ripe or is it is it?
Yeah.
I think some newbies really surprise you sometimes though when you're let people. Some people just naturally get it and they'll straight away they get really descriptive with the flavors that they're getting and it's about. I think people are always worried about saying the wrong thing, and you probably feel that a lot, but you just gotta.
I blame the wine industry for that.
Yeah.
Fair
enough.
But I like this as well because, for those of you who know your distillery codes, it's distillery 10, Isla Distillery, but it's not a distillery that you immediately associate with a heavily peated whiskey, right? So
they do peated and non-peated, but
they
probably
do.
more famous for the non-peated.
Yeah, exactly.
If we're to rewind in history, though, the reason why we bottled Distillery 10 was because we picked up... So 10.1, for instance, was quite heavily peated because they didn't know what to do with it.
And that's why they moved it on.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we were like, oh, this is... And I think the tasting panel at the time said, this is great spirit. Let's bottle it. And so if I might be... I'll have to check my head. I'm pretty sure on that, though. So like 10.1 to 10.10 were all quite heavily peated.
But it kind of, you're challenging your perceptions as well, aren't you? Instead of walking into a bar and saying, I want a dram from Distillery X.
And you know exactly what it's going to taste like because you've had it.
A certain
it's like a brand,
profile.
like
this is like
every time it's exactly the same, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's not the way we do it,
No. I mean, it's a bit of a leap into the unknown, isn't it? Every time you go for a society bottle, and then you don't want to. I always say you don't want to eat the same dinner every night. Like you'd probably get bored.
Absolutely.
You had the same,
that's
haggis, neeps, and tatties every.
psychopathic behaviour. I'm thinking of Dominic Raab. Remember the politician? They said his parliamentary secretary assistant said he gets the same sandwich every day. He gets the same lunch every single day. And they went to some kind of psychologist and they're like, oh, that's psychopathic. So maybe drinking the same dram every day. When there's so much out there.
We're not talking about people who wear the same clothes every day.
Well, that's actually true.
Yeah.
Is that psychopathic as well?
Could be.
We don't know for sure, but it could be.
In which case I'm in trouble.
We are on the couch after all. We can start this session now if you want. No, but
Richard just wears his cycling shorts every day.
I change them. I do have a selection.
You get a selection of shorts.
Yeah. They do get washed.
We have not talked about what we're getting from this whiskey. I think we need to.
What are we getting from this whiskey, Matt?
First of all, I love the fact that it's second fill ex Oloroso on the finish, on the extra maturation, because it's not, for me, it's not immediately like, oh, that's a sherry bomb.
Not that obvious, is it?
It's actually the sweetness. It adds almost like a layer for me, almost like a brown sugar sweetness on top of.
It's got lovely colour as well. Look, it's lovely, beautiful golden colour.
I mean, sure.
I get I'm getting kind of like earthy, mossy vibes with it. I know that's It's more of a kind of green kind of style of peat, probably.
Pretty full on though, isn't it?
I've not tried it yet.
Even with the kind of second fill.
Yeah.
The peatiness is.
It is quite peated. Yeah.
It's right there.
It's lovely. It's got this lovely sort of like I say, like just a hint of like a brown sugar glaze over a mossy bog sort of thing. It's
got a lovely, like mouthfeel to it. It's almost like jammy kind of. I guess it'd be like a really dark sort of spicy marmalade or something.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of creme brulee over.
Yeah.
Hot coals or something.
It's lovely.
There you go.
Lovely.
Like that.
You probably
All right.
somewhere.
So that's challenging our preconceptions. Let's go somewhere totally different. You want to crack that one over?
Yeah, sure. I know. I actually picked this one for Outturn. This was one of the ones I was most excited to put in Outturn because first of all, I love oily and coastal profile.
Yeah.
And second of all, oily and coastal from a distillery that you don't see a lot of oily and coastal from, Distillery 59.
Well, that was another thing that caught my eye. I'm always looking for something a little bit different. And certainly when I saw that from this distillery, from the oil and coastal profile, you're like, okay, let's check this out.
Yeah. Now, going back to your comment before about colour, this is also quite a amber hue to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's kind of almost autumnal a little bit, that kind of... We were talking about... When was it? We had one last month. It was we're talking about tempura. We're not
Tempura toast? Oh no, that's
No, we were talking about a bottling then, and it was.
All right.
It was.
well, we had one last month called Tempura Tincture.
Yeah, that's the one we
yeah.
had.
There's a
And we had
spicy and dry 121.
There you go. Doesn't forget it. We were having that conversation with Anna about how we what tempura was and what's the difference between tempura and just good old Scottish batter.
Oh yeah. It just sounds more
Oh,
sophisticated.
it sounds so much more sophisticated.
Tempura does sound
Yeah.
yeah.
Tempura toast
Battered toast.
59.89, and so American oak ex Oloroso butt into a first fill ex Oloroso butt.
And this is
So think about that. That's Oloroso into Oloroso. So that's a double sherry maturation.
I'm definitely getting the toast on it.
It's got a lovely nose.
And this is one of the one of these workhorse distillers we were talking about.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
high volume, and it's usually a like sweet, smooth
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah, you
for
don't-
blends.
You don't see it very often.
Are you tucking Pinky? Or
Tucking.
Are you going out with Pinky or Ian?
I just let my pinky do what it wants to do.
I don't think the pinky's out.
Mine was a little bit, I think.
Don't encourage
What does that say about somebody
Yeah, what
who
does
has
that
a pinky?
say about you?
Put your pinky away,
It means that I like to drink my whiskey with my elegant pinky poking up the way.
That's you can't say the word poking again on this podcast. I'm sure you'll get that'll get us banned.
You can't say poking.
No, it's done.
It's been cancelled. Just like we're about to be.
It is really nice, oily mouthfeel in that, isn't there? It's like...
It's certainly full on when it comes to sherry, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, and I mean this in a good way. It's a little bit dirty. It's got a little bit of that earthiness. Like it's a little bit of like soil and compost.
It's, kind of savouriness to it.
Yeah, it's a savoury, earthy sort of note to it a little bit,
yeah,
just under
yeah.
the surface there, under the sherry again, like just
Like a greasy cracker. You know?
And is it
yeah.
that's
Crackers
but
with
saltiness
sesame
as
seeds.
well?
Yeah. Those what do you call it? The sakata, the what are the seaweed?
Are you just making that up, man? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Sakata.
Sakata, you know the seaweed biscuit. I don't call it seaweed.
Japanese.
I don't know that one. I don't speak Japanese. I can say enough words to impress you, but that's not difficult.
I'm easily impressed.
Gozaimasu.
Well, look at us like, giggling away here. We've only had 2 sips of whiskey.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a lot to get through.
Yeah, we'll taste a few more
So
things.
we need to be more serious.
Okay.
Right.
More
so
serious. So this is
Yeah.
a serious show, folks.
We've got.
Well, it's his job to be the serious one.
Then we're in
Are
trouble.
you going to go to light and delicate or back to Pete again?
Let's go light and delicate. You know, we picked these out because
And they're both the same.
we're going on a wee journey around the world.
Yeah.
They are not Scotch whiskies. Distillery 138.
Oh, they're
Is-
both 138.
Yeah,
Yep.
both 138. And the thing is, these were actually distilled on the same day, I think, weren't they?
Are they?
Yeah, both 5-year-old, 30th of March 2018.
Yep,
so
correct.
Yeah, cool.
from the same distillery, distilled on the same day, exactly the same age, and completely different flavour profiles, right?
Sister casks.
Couldn't be further apart in profile, actually.
Yeah.
almost.
Oh,
So
totally.
we've got a light and delicate, right?
Well, let's start pouring this one then.
And we've got
Yeah,
peated.
I'm a huge fan of the unpeated 138s.
pass it
So this is exciting. Also, it's worth can we just talk for a second about how you get light and delicate out of something that's cask strength? Because that confuses some members.
Yeah.
It's that whole sort of like, what does it mean to be something that's light and delicate yet still 50-something% ABV?
Yeah.
Are you going to answer that, Calum?
Well, with the ABV, you can always, I was going to say that the obvious answer is you can always add water. So it's more about the flavour than it is about the strength. But with cask strength whiskey or single cask, you do get more flavour. The flavours are more full on. But yeah, sometimes you get ones that are nice and light. And even, colour wise, it's nice and light.
Yeah.
I've not tried it yet.
What's the cask? Is it just a ex-bourbon?
Yeah.
First fill.
First fill bourbon,
fill
5 years old. And, 5 years old, but it comes from a very hot, humid country. So
Yeah.
as we know, the maturation is going to be
Did we say where this comes from? No.
We can say the country, can't we?
Yeah,
yes, from Taiwan.
come-
Yeah.
Taiwan,
from
yeah.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
Huge fan of this distillery.
Yeah.
It's not. Can we say it's not Cavalan?
There it narrows it down, doesn't it?
Yeah, it narrows it down.
Yeah. It's not Cavalan. Yeah. But
It's the other one.
It's the other one. It's the government-owned distillery, which is just blows my mind. It's also the most disorganized site in the world, from what I've seen. But it's like it's fantastic spirit. from what I understand, is well, they make whiskey, gin, fruit wine,
Yeah.
and cigarettes on site.
That's-
No, I'm not even kidding. They roll tobacco and
Can you imagine the guys on their lunch break?
Oh, the lunch break and the staff parties would be off the hook.
Some people's idea of heaven.
Yeah, fruit wine.
Staff benefits.
The staff discount would be phenomenal.
I read that they originally brought in stills that were from Germany,
All right.
and they didn't like the texture or the body of the spirits. So they panned them
They use
and got
for
new
fine,
ones.
don't
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
Oh, they're like their R&D stills now, are they something or
Precise.
Forsyth? Oh, right,
so.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
What do they do with the German stills? They just
I don't know. They just said to stop using them because they wasn't producing the spirit that they wanted.
yeah, fair enough. I admire that though. I mean, rather than just sort of, I admire that they actually. I mean, maybe I place too little faith in government operations for running a distillery, but the fact that they actually made that decision to put different stills in.
Yep.
We're moving on to the next one, are we?
Well, I'm just going to.
Richard's powering through.
I'm just going to pour it so you've got
Yeah.
it there.
So much for
If you can get to one of our marvelous 4 venues and do a side by side of these, this would be fantastic to see, like light and delicate versus a peated from the same distillery distilled on the same date.
So that's the thing. Again, I think it comes back to that idea that you've really got to open your mind to different things. Because if you walked in and said you wanted to try this whiskey from this distillery in Taiwan, you're like, we could offer you 2 completely different things. You've got one that's peated, and one that's
and distilled on the same day.
yeah.
How does that work for peated and non-peated though? On the same day?
Yeah.
It's quite a
It's quite
Normally would do a peated run and they would stop and then do non-peated run.
yeah. It's quite mad. I guess it's just a big enough place that they're able to do the peated in
Switch over.
this part of the distillery and
yeah
the non-peated in another part of the distillery.
I guess that makes it adds another element of interest to it. Right?
It's not that big a distillery as well, by the way. I mean, it's not Caverland size, that's for sure.
So could you get the distillery character? Do you think?
They're pretty similar in colour. I'd almost say that the first one is almost slightly darker.
Yeah.
What's the cask in the second one? Is it just the same?
I think it's the same.
Yeah.
Richard, what you were saying before about drinking whiskey in Scotland, being here drinking it, it's also particularly poignant that we're here, where it's also being bottled literally downstairs from where we're sitting right now.
Yep. This is where it lives.
Like, it's in like this is about as fresh as it gets into the bottle, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Straight off the line.
Yeah. I'm gonna.
Get your nose in a peaty one. That's fantastic.
It's nice, but it's still quite reasonably delicate.
Yep.
The peated one.
On the nose.
I get heaps of that germaline, like antiseptic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The old
more than the
Rowjack
kind of smoky sort of element.
Yeah. This is very much not an Isla whiskey, if you know what I mean. Like this is very much that germaline and like hand sanitizer, sort of almost like in a good way. Again, you say these lines, and one of my favorite tasting notes is cowpat. Cowpat. Yeah, I don't know if you can blur out any words you need, but it's like it's like that sort of
It's that farmyardy,
dung,
garnishy kind of smell.
Yeah, like
which
that sort of hay.
You
And
shouldn't like it, but actually it's not that bad.
Cowpat and
Distillery 66. Yeah.
16s as well.
16.
Peated 16s.
Yeah.
I think that's fabulous.
23s when we get them.
The peated one.
Yeah.
Because it's got those elements to it, but it's not too overpowering. It's still quite delicate. But my question is, would you know that? If you tried that and you maybe knew it was not from Scotland, but would you know that it was 5 years old?
No,
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
No.
And it's not crazy. And I mean, I'd be interested to see how.
Ages are funny,
I've
like
never been to Taiwan, but
yeah, I mean,
you
ages
can
are funny.
compare
'Cause people get all hung up on it, and it's like this is 5 years like of New World, like isn't like this is New World whiskey. 5 years is if it sat in a cask for another 1 or 2, it may have been overcooked.
Yeah.
It's like so you go.
But also interesting when you compare it to other countries that are really humid and hot as well, because every country's going to be different, right?
Yeah.
Well, they reckon within 4 years they've lost a third of the contents of the cask.
So we need to bottle it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They shut
Angel share
down
would be
production in the
insane.
summer because it's just too hot.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, what, like,
totally different.
Like
setup.
Indian whiskies as well. Like,
Yeah.
the Angel share on those.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I was thinking that maybe Indian whiskey would be more extreme in those terms.
I remember an Indian whiskey from one of the distilleries there a few years ago released a 10-year-old whiskey, and the total yield from that cask was 31 litres from a hogshead.
Yeah.
31 litres.
What was it like? Syrupy.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty balanced actually. It had a lot of balance, but it was very thick and syrupy, but it wasn't over the top.
Yeah.
But they were charging something like £1,000 a bottle because they go, well,
yeah,
it's a hogshead, a sherried hogshead that lost 90% of its cask.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, sometimes with Indian whiskey, you'd try something at this age, and it would taste like it's maybe in its 20s or whatever. But for me, these ones taste more like sort of young teens, so they're still light enough.
Yeah.
Which I quite like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're still quite delicate.
Yeah.
Is it because I'm smelling both at the same time? But do you
Well,
pick up the
you mean
slightest
like actually smelling
No,
both at the
no,
same
not
time?
actually at the same time. Like,
that would be challenging.
Yeah. But in that light and delicate one, do you actually pick up a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of peat? And I mean, like, is that just my nose playing tricks on me after smelling the other one now?
I didn't before. I was more. I mean, there's obviously lots of elements to it, but I was more
I think it's getting mixed up, isn't it?
pear and nectarine and.
It's very fruity. It's very
citrus
tropical, but there's
notes.
also bits of like.
Well, are you working this out because they were distilled on the same day? Thinking perhaps there's maybe a bit of a
also,
crossover.
yeah. I mean, it's perceptual bias, isn't it? Like suddenly, yeah.
Right. Well, we also want to move on just to highlight a couple of the less pricey bottles. Not that our bottles are very fairly priced, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's always some more kind of entry level pricing. You want to crack that one up?
Oh yeah, sure.
Well, this is one of your personal favourite distillers, is it not, Matt?
It is actually. I'm a huge fan of 35s, as members in Australia will attest to.
I think it's a lot of people's favourites. So
We're going to run out of glass.
No, we're good.
Oh, don't you worry. He's counted
Yeah.
the numbers.
Oh, okay.
We're all good.
Because we've got 2 more and 3 glasses.
Yeah, we're not cracking
Remember,
open.
he's not letting us open the good ones.
Yeah, but I'm here.
Well, you can overrule him.
No.
You can sign it off now.
Just put it on my budget instead. Yeah, exactly. Wow, look at that. Speaking of colour.
So this is 50 quid a bottle, right?
You're kidding me.
You got a wee dot in your glass, Calum. I don't know why.
What do you mean? Oh, well, that'll be from some sort of sensory
Right.
test.
So this is £50 a bottle. By the way, Slancher.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't done this yet. Cheers.
Good
to have you on.
Richard's powering through. I haven't had even a chance to
Just relax. Take your time.
I'm relaxed. I'm perfectly relaxed.
Don't let him rush you.
No, I'm not rushed. It's fine.
I want to ask you a question just to change the subject completely.
Okay.
Do you have any Scottish blood?
My maternal grandparents were born in Scotland.
There you go.
What part?
I think my grandmother was a McDewey. I think she was born in Aberdeen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're Matt McBailey, or should we call you that from now on? Yeah.
Sure. I've had so many ridiculous nicknames over the years. You can call me Matt McBailey if you so desire.
Adopted Scot.
Adopted Scot, exactly. No, the Bailey's lineage is Irish, but my grandmother's line was that was Scottish.
Yeah.
Because I was curious about that. Man, your perceptions of growing up in Australia, and most people from Australia are originally from somewhere else, but just curious about that. There you go.
Australia's great. Yeah, we love it.
I thought maybe
it's great.
knowing that you had that sort of family history, that it might also add to the sort of allure of Scotland and Scottish whiskey.
Yeah, I mean, what's that thing? I mean, it does. I mean, I think it probably plays into it a bit, but I mean, I never really knew my grandparents, but I mean, I know that both of them were at some point.
But you could play for Scotland rugby if you wanted to.
I could.
We claim that a lot, don't we?
Yeah. I went to my first Hibs versus Rangers match the other week.
Oh, did you?
That was good fun.
Wow.
Yeah, good fun. Yeah.
In the neutral section.
Yeah.
yeah, Matt. Who were you supporting? At least it wasn't.
No, I'm a Hibs supporter.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
As a lether.
As a Lether, that's right. That's right. I have to be.
I feel that's
Billy McCarter told me that he said, "Oh, where are you living?" I said, "Leith." I said, "Oh, well." He goes, "Well, you have to be a Hibs supporter."
Yeah.
I said, okay, done.
fair.
And that was 3-3 against the Rangers. So
Did you hear any bad language?
everyone's pretty well behaved.
Did you understand the language?
The Rangers were bloody loud, that's for sure. Yeah. They were a loud bunch, that stadium. It was at the Hibs Stadium in Leith, which was great.
Easter Road.
Easter Road.
You're staying above the vaults, aren't you?
I am at the moment.
What a place to pitch up. Come to Scotland and stay literally.
Is that how they sold the move to you? We'll let you live at the vault.
Upstairs.
It's strange turn of events, but I am upstairs at the moment.
Is that not a wee bit too tempting?
Yeah, it is. It is, especially because I've got a key to that side door.
Okay.
I don't have to go outside to get into the vaults.
Also, if you work in the downstairs in the vaults and your boss turns up every day, you're like, okay,
yeah.
no, he's checking
I
up
try
on us
not to go
again.
in most because otherwise, it's like, Josh and the amazing team and Miguel and the team there see probably a little bit too much of me, but that's all right.
I'm sure you're more than welcome.
No, thank you. Anyway, back to this whiskey.
What do you love about this place, Matt?
Okay. First of all, it's a distillery code 35 where I think that the society offerings are so far and above different, or just so much different from the core range. That's the first thing that I love. And second of all, I came into the 35s around 2015 when I joined the team, and even back then, we were going through this phase of everything from 17, 27-year-old stock from this distillery and everything in between, from ex-Chenin Blanc, ex-River Salts, ex-Oloroso, ex-Bourbon. So incredible cask diversity, age diversity, and just a really clean, delightful spirit. It's got this sort of almost... it's got a sense of weight to the spirit. It's got this complexity to it. And in this case, it's young, it's fun, it's delightful drinker. And as you said, for £50 a bottle, I'm going to be buying one of those because that's just like...
You can have that one if you want.
Thanks, mate.
I'll charge you 45.
Cutting deals live.
But I think it's underrated, isn't it? Apart from society members who've been with us for a while, and they just know you can't go wrong. When
it's one of it's one of those ones that the society members are definitely the top.
Yeah, society members know it, and it's also that plays into that thing that I've talked about before of like, I tell members, don't be code hunters. Mm-hmm. Like, don't be a code hunter. Just be a flavor hunter. And I know that sounds really like on brand or whatever, but like if you go, oh, I love 35, but I don't go for 35s. I only hunt out 125, or I only hunt out 33s or 29s. Or it's like you're missing out on so many great malts because they don't have. I mean, their core range is good, but like I think our society offerings are just above and beyond. Really do, and even some of those older, like the Shona Hardy Toasted Oak, 33-year-old something. It's like...
Oh, the Creators Collection?
Yeah. That Creators Collection of 35 is one of the best whiskies I've had all year, and it's like middle of January.
One of my favourite whiskies from Distillery number 35 was a Toasted Hogshead called Elgin Marvel.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was Old and Dignified. I tried it when I was in the venue, and I'm lucky enough to get one of the last bottles in the venue, and it's one of those ones like, I don't know why I'm not opened it, but like, I just can't bring myself to open it because I know that's one of my favourites that I've ever had.
Yeah.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
And that's the thing. I mean, I've still got. Actually, here's one for you. I've still got a bottle of 35. I think it's 179. I
remember. I don't even bother trying to remember the numbers.
And it was called a Dunwich Bakehouse.
I think I
we got in trouble for that bottling, and it was matured in ex-gin cask. Do you remember this?
Yeah. Right. We got our fingers.
Yeah,
slapped.
Singed.
We
get our
knuckles
wrapped.
Your wrist.
Yeah.
Wrist. We got our wrists.
Wrist slap.
We got told. Yeah, thank you. Our producers are telling us.
We get your fingers, your knuckles, and your wrists.
Naughty boys.
But that's actually one of the things I love most about the society as well. We occasionally do things like this where it's like, you know what, we shouldn't, like, it's, we're pushing the boundaries a bit, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And it actually wasn't particularly good whiskey, if I'm being honest. It was okay. But it was there was the story behind it of like, what would happen if you put this whiskey in an ex-gin cask? Yeah. But anyway.
Well, and also that distillery also got in a bit of trouble, didn't they?
The cider cask. Yeah. I saw a bottle of that literally yesterday. I saw one kicking around. I was like, I remember that.
Right, we've got another kind of more relatively entry-level pricing here. £57 for a bottle from Distillery 121. Crack that one open, Calum.
Oh, so we're not opening that 122, is that what you're saying?
Nah.
Aww.
Oh, come on.
No, that was, I mean, are we tossing up between this one or the other one? No, if you've already got the notes of this one, let's go with this one. Actually, no, let's do this one. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I thought you were keen to do this one.
I was, yeah.
Well,
good name.
Yeah, I'm about to say, apart from the fact it's got a cracking name. Well, we were talking about this distillery recently, and you were laughing the last because I was saying it was from. We were sort of trying to get around the fact we weren't mentioning the name of the distillery, but then I was like, but it is from the Isle of Arran.
Yeah.
And then you thought it was a bit too obvious or whatever. But I mean, this.
It's kind of obvious.
Yeah, of course it is. But I was like, it's a loophole, is what my point was.
I
Yeah.
actually don't mind those loopholes. What was the other one I heard recently was, this distillery is on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Yeah, what's like I can't. And this distillery is on the Isle of Arran. Yeah, which is why the fun name on this one.
Ah, yeah. So they get the Isle of Ambulance.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's pronounced it like that. Ambulance.
Yeah.
Um,
What is it, north or south of the Isle of Ambulance?
It's north.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because the other distillery is south, right?
That's correct.
Well, you tested me there.
Well,
I mean,
I've been-
yes, you were just being tested. You're now permitted
like to
back
put
on the
them on
next
the spot.
episode.
So this is the original distillery. They have since built a newer distillery, which is it's more of a peated style. Well, it's all peated.
And from what I understand, they're not actually producing peated whiskey at this distillery
Because they
anymore.
used to
No,
produce
that's
peated.
right, yeah.
yeah.
I think they had a couple. They had medium peat was produced for over 4 weeks of the year, and then they had heavily peated produced over 2 weeks of the year up at the
Yeah.
distillery, and then so there is peated casks, but you don't see it
Yeah.
that. I've never had one of their bottlings that's been peated before.
Right. You did a wee trip over there with members.
Yeah.
from
Well, I went there a
Glasgow,
couple of years ago. It was fantastic. It was really good. But we were slightly unlucky because we went to the we went to Lag, and it was right before they were about to bottle their own. But often these things get delayed a little bit, and then we missed it just to trying the new release, the first new release by a couple of weeks. But it was still a great trip. Really interesting.
Did you just say the name of the distillery?
It did.
I said Lag. That's okay.
It's a place.
I'm not talking
Oh,
about.
that is a place, yeah.
We're
Okay.
not, I'm not talking about Lag, am I?
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've gotten away with that one this month.
So let's
Okay.
try it.
Well, yeah. So I think trying peated spirit from this distillery is actually really exciting. We had one a couple of months ago called Citric Peppermint something. It was only like 2 months ago. I can't remember the name of it, but I thought it was fantastic. It was lightly peated 121.
Yeah. So this is 8 years old, peated, first fill bourbon, 61%, bang on, Isle of Ambulance. And this is one that we have released from in the past quite a few times. But we had a bit of a dry spell, I suppose. We hadn't seen a bottling for a while. And this is certainly one that a lot of our members get really excited about, and they're really happy to see it come through quite regularly now. And that's going to keep on coming, which will keep us all happy.
Yeah, good.
Because we love it.
And another great bit of work by the tasting panel.
Yeah.
And also
With the
a
name,
distillery that
tasting
you would
notes.
still consider to be a new distillery, but it's kind of newish. It's it's coming up. What is it?
25?
Is it 25?
I
It's
think it
the
just-
20s. Yeah.
I think it just did its 25th anniversary.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it's
Fairly recently, yeah.
Ewan McGregor was banging on about it.
he had the
Yeah.
original bottle. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he didn't drink. He doesn't drink, so
Oh,
he
that's
he
a
auctioned
waste.
he auctioned it for charity.
okay.
I think we got lots of money for it. Yeah. But yeah, but
That's a nice thing, isn't it?
it's good to see like
the-
one of the new distilleries is just going from strength to strength like that. And
Yeah.
Maybe you should have auctioned a cask of water instead. Really? I don't know.
What do you reckon, Matt?
I love the name because it's very fitting. It's like the inside of an ambulance. It's got that sort of
Bit antiseptic.
bit antiseptic,
It's a bit
bandages.
rubbery, like you're almost lying
Yeah.
down on the dolly and you're back of the ambulance, you're getting taken away.
Yeah.
Because whatever has
Speaking
happened to you.
Personal experience there, Calum.
You wake up and all you can smell is the rubber of the mat and the dolly in the back of the ambulance. It's never happened to me.
This is the kind of whiskey I'd like to take. This is like a hiking whiskey for me.
Yeah.
I'd call this a hiking dram. I love this kind of style of like.
Stick in the hip flask.
This is a stick in the hip flask, and on your next Saturday hike, this is when you reach the summit. This is what you pour.
It's got a bit of a minerality almost.
Yep.
Yeah, it is
kind of-
mineral. It
yeah.
is. It's opening up a bit now. By the way, we've only just cracked all these bottles fresh right now, and they all change a little bit after they're being opened.
What you're saying is we need to go back and revisit them all.
We need to do this podcast again in an hour's time, and in a week's time, and then in a month's time.
Yeah.
To the Isle of Ambulance to drink it at the top of Goat Fell from our hip flasks.
Yeah.
Sounds like an unfiltered feature being
Yeah.
written right there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Have you been up Goat? I think you've been up Goat Fell.
I've never been up Goat Fell.
Have you not?
No.
I think it's the one I've done the most. Well, it's actually not a Monroe because it's just slightly short of a Monroe. But when we talk about, that's another thing we've mentioned before. Arran's famous because it's like a miniature Scotland.
Yeah.
It has lowlands, highlands,
Yeah.
and all the flower and fauna you find everywhere in Scotland. And
The
they're-
fault line actually runs diagonally across the island, right?
yeah.
So it's not just like this perception. Oh, it's a wee bit different in the north than
Yeah.
from the south. That fault
Actually,
line
yeah.
have you been at?
divides
No.
the island.
You
I've
need
never
to
been.
go, and it's
I
quite
know,
easy.
I know.
It's really accessible from Glasgow.
Yeah. There's a new boat.
There's a new boat that goes from
A new
Trinidad
Calmac.
instead of Ardrossan, and it's a fantastic place to go.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And that's a cracking dram.
That is lovely. I'm surprised how oily it is. It's like the texture on it's quite thick.
It's quite unique, that actually. It's quite unusual, but it's light, but it's fresh. But then it really kicks in, like the kind of aftertaste to it.
Yeah.
With that kind of ashy.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's smoke, but it's like
It's quite
a damp ash.
Yeah.
Have
you been to many Scottish islands? I know you were in Islay. We were there together quite a few years ago now.
6 years ago. Yeah, 6 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I've been to Jura.
Yeah.
I've been to Islay, and I've been to Campbelltown. And
It's not an island, Matt.
no, I'm just. Thanks, Richard.
Eastern Australia, that's okay.
Yeah, it's all islands and not islands. Okay, Australia's just Australia.
Hold up.
It's harder to get to than an island, probably, because the drive's so long.
That's true.
Yeah, no, we do have islands. We've got islands off the coast of Australia.
I know.
Could you name one of them?
Tasmania.
No.
Oh, Australian islands.
Fraser Island.
That's pretty good. Well done.
I've been there.
There you go. So if I miss one island here, but Isle of Mull or Isle of Arran, if I suddenly miss one, it's
Yeah. Well, you need to.
I want to get to. I saw your content on Harris. I'd love to get to.
Honestly, Harris is just such a fantastic place to go to, and that distillery is magical. But
The whole place.
I mean, you could literally. I'm not saying to people who come to Scotland, like you can literally drive up. I'm a bit biased to the West Coast as opposed to the East Coast. The East Coast is great, but the rugged West Coast with all the islands, you need to explore them all. They're just magical, and it's exactly what you imagine from outside of Scotland. The misty isles. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
it's like every distillery's got its own character. Every island has got something different about it. So it's like it's worth visiting as many as you can.
Do you get to Isle of Mull much?
I have been, yeah.
Not that many.
Well, when I went there, the distillery was still mothballed at the time. But they were still doing tours because it'd been bought over. So you actually got to do a tour around the distillery, and just it was like a ghost ship or something. Right. That was kind of spooky. There's cobwebs everywhere, and obviously now it's back in action. So I'd like to go back and see it now.
Yeah,
but
it's beautiful.
Mull's lovely, and we were in the Morven Peninsula at a distillery. It overlooks Tobermory, so you can see the different coloured houses from there, from the other side.
Yeah, right.
So great. I just love the West Coast of Scotland.
Yeah. Bit of island.
You're a Westie.
Yeah, but I mean, there's loads of islands are where I'd move probably if I could.
That's an Australian. Maybe we call people Westies.
Yeah.
Or
in America, it's West Coast versus East Coast.
Yeah, I guess so.
West side.
Well, that's a belter.
And everyone in Scotland who you speak to who's been to
The young
Australia,
person
they
behind the camera's telling
they've
me
been to
this
Perth.
Everyone's
Everyone's been to Perth. No one
everyone's
gets to
been-
the East Coast in Australia, it seems. No one gets to Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane.
Perth's like so far away.
It's the most remote city in the
It's like
world.
7 hours flight from Sydney.
Yeah.
It's the other side of the country.
What do people do in Perth? Just
Live their lives.
They just stay
What do you mean? What
there.
do the people do in Perth?
yeah, but they just stay there.
Yeah.
They can't really go anywhere.
Oh, you got Margaret River down, and you got a few other parts, but yeah, it's mostly just Perth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That must be a bit weird.
You probably. I mean, you could live in
But I mean, Australia.
Fremantle if you want. Fremantle's just an hour away from Perth.
Australia in itself, same with New Zealand. I mean, they're fairly, remote from other countries. So probably.
Oh yeah.
So you probably do a lot of
Although I mean, we're
holidays
much
in
closer
your own.
to Asia than we are here.
Yeah.
People holiday a lot to
Bali and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like
Bali and Japan and stuff very easily from Australia. But I mean,
Yeah.
just as you can get around Europe here, or the US is a lot closer here, and so you get different scales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that. Awesome.
There you go.
It's easier to get to Scotland from Perth though.
All
The
right.
flight path it goes
Perth to Perth.
Perth to Perth.
Yeah.
Is there an airport in Perth?
Don't think so.
You're talking
It's kind of tiny.
about Perth, Scotland, right?
Yeah.
We've got one more. Matt, you were interested in this one.
Oh, you are going to open it?
Well,
You twisted his arm.
Are we opening a different?
I don't think we're glasses.
No, we won't look over there.
Do you want me to go and get glasses?
Go and get some
Why do you send Duncan away?
Duncan.
Send the young laddie out to get glasses.
He's young and fit. He can pick up
Listen,
some-
you're not the
he'll
boss
get
of
some
us.
glass
Be a
there.
good
You
boy,
just do
Duncan.
what you're told, okay?
just 3.
He just gave us a thumbs up just then. He didn't set up camera. He was very happy to get some more glass.
said I would be delighted.
I would be delighted.
This is another society favourite, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we've got 5 different codes for this distillery.
Is it 5 now?
It's 5.
We'll keep adding them.
112, 122, 135, G9, G15.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Jeez.
And everyone forgets G9 because we don't bottle many G9. I think we've got up to G9.5 or something. Very few.
I don't think I've ever tried a G9 before.
I've only ever had one, I think.
I want to ask off camera what it's called again, the G9.
What this distillate's called?
No, the G9.
Well, that's organic wheat.
Right, okay.
So that's the organic wheat grain.
Yeah.
And G15 is the, I can say it's not the
It's
distillery, is Rostu column.
Yeah.
Well, G9's also column, but it's... And actually, technically, this one is I think this one's half column.
Oh, why thank you, sir.
I can't remember.
Good man, Duncan.
Right, one of you guys pouring this one?
Yeah, you go.
Oh,
One,
I
two, two.
love these spirits. I love these. Young and sprightly. It's not peated run, but smell that and tell me it doesn't have a hint of peat in it.
Well, typically you'd associate one like this one with peat, don't you? Most of the time.
No, sometimes.
One-
Yeah, a lot of the
Most of the ones we have are
Yeah, most
peated.
of them. Yeah. But they also have a separate run. Well, at least they used to.
Yeah.
Which they would call Glen Douglas,
Yeah,
which was unpeated.
and that's for their blends.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of different. At one point, I think they've trimmed it down, but at one point, this distillery was making, I think, 13 different spirit types.
Yeah, because we're
Spirit
having
runs.
combinations of different stills for different.
So swan
liquid.
neck versus
Yeah,
straight neck versus column versus and they'd make 13 different combinations out of that.
Every time I look at one of these bottles, I have to go back to my notes to remind myself of what kind of configuration.
But
they've
also,
used.
But going back to what we said earlier on, I mean, that kind of gets down to nerdy stats.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell us anything about how it tastes.
No.
Yeah.
no.
I stick your nose
I
in the
find
glass
that-
and that's what counts, really, isn't it?
Whenever I go back to the notes on the different stills I have, I get more confused. So
Yeah. But yeah, fruity, estery, right?
it's like blackcurrant and
And did we say
powdered
the price was-
trees.
That's £55 for that bottle, right?
The fruit and it just reminds me, all of these young and sprightly 122s we get through. There's one prevailing tasting note I get, which is that old railway track log cabin vibe going on. Like a little bit of that sort of like train tunnel.
Really, really specific.
Yeah, but like it is. But that's what flavor notes are. That's fine. But it's that whole sort of like damp log.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
log
definitely.
cabin like railway yard sort of smell.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
It's
like
the wood and the
fruit
metal and the dampness.
I get it. Like the chopped wood, which has been left for a while, and there's a bit of moss.
Bit of
growing
moss,
on it.
yeah.
That's good.
And you're near a train yard. You're near with some sold steam trains. A bit of like
Diesel smoke.
yeah, like a little bit of diesel, a little bit of that sort of like a hot steel diesel smoke kind of thing going on.
Well, a very good selection as always for February.
Thank you.
We're going to also give this bottle that we mentioned.
Oh, I thought you sounded like you're about to give it away. We're going to be giving this away to one
we did
lucky
talk
viewer.
about it.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, Duncan's won it. There you go.
I don't think we
No.
can give
You want
that
it?
away. Callum, you want to just tell us what this
Tell us
is?
a bit about it. Yeah.
Well, I like the way you looked at it up and down and went, and I'm gonna.
Pass
I'm
that
not
on.
really sure what I'm going to say about this one, so I think I'll just give it to the scapegoat here.
I thought you were going to pass it.
I will read this bottle out for you. No, this is from distillery number 30. It's 0.124. It's called Sunshine on the Soul. I should look at the camera and say that. Sunshine on the Soul. 31 years old. Can't remember if I said that or not, but it's a refill ex-bourbon. And we were talking earlier about how when it
Long
comes to older
refill.
whiskies, refill
Long
barrels.
aged refill
And
stock.
it's all about the time in the cask because it's a really gentle, subtle maturation.
Yep.
And some of the finest whiskies we've ever tried
Yeah.
fall into that category.
31 years, spicy and dry, and full refill. Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
It's a bit like, it's a Vaults collection bottle. We always go to the whiskey team to say that, right, what's the story behind this whiskey?
Yeah.
And they're like, it's lovely old whiskey.
Yeah.
And that's about as much as you get out of them. And, that's
they're
the
right.
That's the truth.
It's also, again, we've talked about how different cask types and different treatments and things. It's worth noting that this distillery 30, is almost always in some variation of sherry wood.
Yep.
And this is full maturation in ex-bourbon. So this is going to show it's like getting Distillery 1 next bourbon.
Yeah.
As distillery traditionally is always in ex-sherry.
Yeah.
But this is like, again, this is a distillery that's almost always in sherry casks of some...
It's like this distillery just decided to take its clothes off and go streaking.
Oh,
Nope.
steady. But
You can choose later if you want to keep that in or not.
I think we should keep that in.
lovely old whiskey. So we're kind of running the gamut from, what was
Yeah.
it, £50 up to, I think this is 450.
Yeah, 475 or something.
475,
somewhere around there.
round about that mark. So something for everyone, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the idea.
And I know that's not going to be to everyone's budget, but I challenge anyone to find a 31-year-old single cask from that distillery
Yeah.
within that price range.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it is honestly, it's actually really good value.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Matt.
Lovely to
Sandra, thank
have
you so
join
much.
us.
Thank you.
Cheers.
I feel honoured to be on your to finally get on an episode.
It's an honour to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
And reminder, find us on Whisky Talk on YouTube. Like and subscribe. More content coming your way this year. So all the best. And cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.